and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. We'll start with public information, first from the select board. Anyone have anything?
I don't think so.
All right, I have one quick thing from the Board of Library Trustees is accepting nominations for the library's Wall of Honor. The wall plaque honors an individual who has supported the library with exceptional service and dedication for a prolonged period of time. More information and the nomination form can be found by going to the library website at easthamlibrary.org or by stopping by the front desk at the library, and the deadline is April 6th for this year. And let me jump to my agenda because I don't have a paper one today.
Oh,
That's all right.
I can share my messy one.
Shellfish grant.
All right. Shellfish grant changes to the
Mhm.
access. So do you want to start with the history of this, or should we have them?
Goodness, I think Chris should give you the history, or Trent.
Trent.
Sorry.
Hello. my name's
Hello.
Brent Sullivan.
Chris Crowbar.
So we've had the summer truck access program for how many years now?
Can you make sure that your microphones are on there?
Be a little green light, it'll come
Little
on.
green
Yep.
light?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, great.
And you speak into them.
2 years? Is this
So
gonna
we've
be
had
3?
this summer program for, this is what, the third year? We're going
Going
on
on
the
a third year for the summer, yes.
third. And we've been noticing that the parking lot at First Encounter is usually not busy by the time that we're due off for hours after. So we've asked to extend the weekday time to 10 o'clock, and we've asked that we be allowed to access the grants on weekends until 8:30. We met with Jackie Beebe and Stephanie a couple months ago, I think in December, actually. To discuss a lot of changes, which a lot of them were approved through the CONSCOM, and there were a few things that we asked for that we didn't really get a positive feedback from. And we met with the group of growers, and it was sort of decided that we want to push for the things that we asked for a little more strongly. And Jackie's sort of been really good working with Chris and myself, trying to find the middle road here. Which I think is what we're here to do. That's all I have to say, pretty much. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Well, I know me and Jackie spoke briefly. I'm not sure if you had any other updates. I know you said there might be some willingness to give us weekends, and I'm not sure if there was any, progress on the weekday times. But weekend days alone, like, would be a big help to a lot of us, especially for the guys who don't, who do work other jobs Monday through Friday. The weekend is sometimes the only time that they can get to the farms. But I think weekends alone is a step in the right direction for sure. And I think that would actually give us like 15 additional days throughout the 5 month, or it's really like 4 months or 3 to 4 month periods. So that being said, like, we're completely okay with the weekends till 8:30. That's definitely a big step in the right direction. But as far as like going till 10, I don't, that's what we were shooting for. But if there's anything, any sort of, compromise, we'd be willing to, hear that. And yeah, I mean,
We realized
just trying to
that
open up a dialogue, and
we realized like 10 o'clock does cut it close in terms of when you really get that first wave of activity at the beach. It's usually 10:30 to 11 is when everybody really starts going to the beach. But on our end, even 9 o'clock, 9:30, it's still not that busy when we're coming off the beach. So I understand the apprehension to allow us to cut it that much closer to the public access for our access. But any little bit sort of helps. So if there's any sort of wiggle room, we'd appreciate it.
Thanks. And I think for the clarification of both the board, maybe the listening public and the growers. So the board, select board cannot touch the order of conditions. As you guys know, you fought hard for these order of conditions and it is 100% the conscom. It's kind of interesting to see that they are loosening up on a couple of things, which is good, especially the reporting stuff is, but we got a ways to go on that. But what they didn't say, which I think is very true, is that this program has gone really well. And I understand why the grant holders want more time. I do, but I also understand the anxiety of my staff that has to manage, 13 beaches and all of that. And I know you're only one beach, but it factors in, right? So I think we're trying to grow this slowly over time and not wobble anyone's woo and try and keep the shellfish growers feeling like every year they're making a little progress. So that's why I suggested that we try and split the difference and go with the weekends, because honestly, what we're really concerned about is July and August. And there's very little difference in July and August between a Tuesday and a Saturday. So I think, I mean, it's probably a little busier on weekends, but not that much so that it would
Not-
take them out.
Not before 8:30 in the morning, no.
Right, exactly. And I'd like to look at I know that they want the time and that would give them more time to vacate the beach. And I think 9 o'clock probably is reasonable, but I would love it if we could wait on that until next year, because I think it would give Christine the time to really pay attention to that beach. We've got some pictures from you, but I want her to go through this season thinking, how could I manage it if it was 9 or 9:30? And have the opportunity to do that. So that's my piece. I think honestly, it's gone pretty well. The crab program is going really well. They've been very good and patient with it. And so far, this experiment has been, I think, very positive for both the town and the growers.
Right. Anyone from the board have any questions? Jamie?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that the program's going well for everybody. That's great. I guess my question would be maybe what would be the advantage to extending the time that you had out there from 8:30 to 9:30, say, or 9, or if it was to 10, like what is it that improves for you guys?
Well, it would allow us, I mean, it's really not a whole lot of time. I think if we were allowed access until 10 a.m., we would have about 8 days throughout the summer program of extra access as opposed to what we have now.
Mhm.
So having, 8 extra days doesn't seem like much, but, spread out throughout the summer, which is, sort of unpredictable because you never really know when you're going to need to do what. And the nature of our business doesn't really allow us all the time in the world to access our work and, trying to make the most out of the situation, basically.
Mhm.
And a lot of other people have other full-time jobs. I mean, Chris and myself and a few others are usually the only full-time people out there. So a lot of other people have other obligations, can only put so much time into it. So.
Yeah, and I noticed I know we can't touch the order of conditions, but there was something on there about 2 trucks going out, allowing 2 trucks, right? But not during summer.
Mhm. I don't know, is that what they did?
Is that what?
So
is that in
vehicles
there?
No, that
October through
was-
December and then March and April.
That was a conscom thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. 'Cause I didn't
It-
know if having the time would kind of make up for the less.
Why January and February? I can't remember why that was of concern to them.
Because they weren't really certain, or they were under the impression that we weren't really busy or active during those months.
Okay.
I think that was what it was. I think we
We
both-
figured that out. I think,
yeah.
At the last meeting.
So maybe we need to correct that just because there obviously is a lot of things you have to check on a grant at any time.
Storm,
right?
yeah. I mean, I would
Yeah,
think.
especially if there's something some bad weather
Oh,
coming and a
yeah.
storm and you want to pull everything off, 2 trucks would be pretty
Definitely.
beneficial.
So I do want to, our new shellfish constable, not to put you on the spot, but she is here this evening. I don't know if you guys have met her, Devin. But if you want to come up, Devin, and sit with Rich, I think there is an issue certainly with Vibrio that's of concern, and this
Yep.
helps that, right? Being able to access the grants faster and get on and off helps that. And there was
Yeah, I
another-
had a question about that actually, Jackie. Are they changing the regulation around that? Around like how much time you have with that?
Devin, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry to do this. to
Hi.
you.
That's okay. Is it even on? Am I, okay. Okay, you can hear me.
You're good.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, hi, I'm Devin. Nice to
Well-
meet you all. All right, so Vibrio questions,
Are they
asking,
changing the regulations?
there is something that's changing and I would have to look at it. I know that the DMF is changing a bunch of different things. I don't know.
I think the time of icing is down to an hour.
Yeah,
from
so.
exposure Instead of 2 hours.
Yeah, I think that was one of the changes. And then there's a bunch of reporting changes too to like be aware of. It was in pretty fine print, so I would suggest reading it. But yeah, basically, I mean, that was really the only thing for the Vibrio was the hour icing. I think they knocked
Yeah.
it down
What was
to
it
2
originally?
hours.
I think it was 2
Two.
hours.
2 hours, so
Yeah.
it cut their time in half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that'll really put a damper on what we can and can't do with access. you know.
yeah. But I mean, I guess if you put it in a different perspective, like if I were out there, because I have a grant too, not in Eastham, but in Wellfleet, kind of spacing it out so that like you have your hour time frame and then you can go back out again and, continue doing it in like hour increments. That way you can kind of get the most out of like the Vibrio regulations. But yeah, it kind of does the bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then like I said, the fine print, with the whole reporting, they are starting to put like warnings and things on people's licenses if you don't report on time. That includes like paper and like online reporting. And they can actually like, it can get to the point where there's so many warnings that you end up like not getting a propagation or a state permit if it's like too consistent. So I would kind of read up on that because it was in pretty fine print. So, but yeah, that's what I have on like the state
Thank you.
aspect.
All right, Jerry?
When do we begin, what time of day do we begin collecting parking fees at First Encounter?
9. The beach opens at 9. The beach attendants get there. They like to clear, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's interesting as we look at it. And I think your idea, Jackie, of having the rec department, rec and beach, look at, kind of almost a survey of how the use is in the time early in the morning to see if we can extend, and what kind of, that we can be fine with the people wanting to go to the beach and those wanting to work on the flats out there, that that would be a good thing to do. But
And
I-
it is, Jerry, somewhat random. Like I know when I was out there in the afternoon tides, some days there'd be nobody on the beach in May or June. And then the next day there'd be 50 kids from some school
School,
that got
yeah.
dropped off on the bus running all over the place. So
Yeah, it's, the great thing is that this has worked well so far. And we're doing some little tweaks, and I think the idea of doing them smaller tweaks to test how this works, and then the next is best from the point of view of looking at the, you're not at opposite sides, but potential conflicting priorities
Hmm.
of those vacationing on the beach and those working out on the flats. So I think that's, your idea is a good one, and I think you're right, especially in the summer. Well, I'm retired. A weekend is the same as a regular day, but in the summer, when there are people vacationing, weekend and weekday days are the same, just
Mhm.
depend upon the weather. Thank you.
Jamie?
Yeah, No, I do think that everyone's been doing a great job with the program. I guess my concern is that, you know, we've been doing so much work right around helping our residents be able to stay on the Cape, whether it's housing or we're looking at like family support packages and all these things. This is another one of those things.
Mhm.
I know it's not framed as housing, it's not framed as that, but it's framed as, you know, how someone makes a living to be able to stay on the Cape. And it's not only that, but it's also a Cape Cod tradition, which are disappearing at such a rapid rate that to me, it's alarming. So that when I look at something like this, I kind of, I see it a little differently than I would a traditional program that you would want to, you know, slowly move forward, whether it's a rec program or like something in the community, only because this does deal with someone's ability to make a living here. And with that, I guess it makes me lean toward definitely weekends. And I mean, I understand that it's an adjustment, even if you went from 8:30 to 9, right? It does offer a little bit of extra time, especially when we're cutting their ice time in half from the state, if that's coming down the line. I just feel like it's our responsibility to do as much as possible to help these folks. And I'm not saying that we push it to 10 right away, but I do think that 9 is a fair compromise. And I mean, if that's a hard put, I just don't see how a half hour could be so much of a hard push that it's problematic, especially when we're talking about the days they're going to be out there are low tide.
So it's not every day.
It's not every day. And low tide, I mean, that's not when people are like rushing to the beach on the Bayside, you know, maybe like an occasional beach walker and things like that in the morning. It's nice to go out low tide, but like no little kid wants to show up at low tide and have it look like a desert. You know, usually families are going when the tide's a little fuller. So,
They're
I-
just trying to get parking, Jamie.
oh, I know that, but I mean, at 9
That's all they're
a.m.
trying to do.
and looking at some of these photos, I mean, we're talking about 9 a.m. and I've been there, I paddle there, I'm there in the mornings, I see what it looks like at 9 a.m. and it's not full, like it's not packed, like there's like,
No one's saying. that.
So let me just ask, right now it's 8:30 that you have to be completely off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then what happens then at 8:30? Do they put up some kind of a bar across the,
Yeah, I think there's a rope
Yes.
or
Rope.
change, something like
Okay.
that.
so nothing? There's no one standing there to make sure everybody's off or anything like that. It's
No, I don't think so.
like the last person kind of just maybe hangs the rope
I don't
up
think we
and-
had any stragglers, so hopefully everybody got off.
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that the program's been working well, because
Yeah.
everybody's been doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I can agree with
Wouldn't
Jamie
go that
that I
far.
think definitely the
Most
weekends,
people.
I think. But really, if they start collecting money at 9, that's when the gate opens. I can see putting it right up to that. So,
I mean, we're all pretty good about policing each other too. It's for the
Right, you don't wanna
benefit of
spoil it for
ourselves. You're right.
everybody.
So we're usually on top of it and everybody's been very well behaved for considering, you know.
No, I agree, I think everyone's been.
Suzanne, you have anything?
I had a brief exchange with Karen from the Chair of Conservation Commission, and she said that it went pretty well, which I feel like is high praise.
It's
having
high praise.
That's
High
very
praise,
high
high
praise.
praise.
Yeah.
And she really appreciated all the work that the grant holders put into it, and then the Shellfish Department in following the orders of conditions, and that there's building trust between the growers and the commission, and so she seemed like the process went well, so that was
That's really good.
great. That's seemed good to hear. Yeah, and 9 seems okay unless Jackie says her staff and really doesn't want to do it.
My staff really doesn't want to do it. And I'm going to be pushing them probably to do it at some point.
What do they do? What is their interaction in this process? Is it just like, I understand like, it's just like one more thing sort of
Clearing
thing?
and setting, and it's mostly just, having not to be worried about it is the big deal. But I would say if you are inclined to go to 9, then go to 9. Maybe on the weekend days, could we keep it at 8:30 just for this year to see?
How many low tides fall on a weekend? We have the tide charts in here.
I think you get some good, I think weekend time looked
15
good when
days.
we looked at it.
15
Yeah.
days.
If we're
Need
have to be
extra
off at
days,
8:30.
yeah.
What if we What if we did
pretty
8:30?
good.
You said the months you worried about were like July and August. Those were the months that were the most worrisome for,
Yeah, the end of June, the last week in June, the beach is open and they close, after
why
Labor
don't-
Day.
if we wanted to keep it 8:30 for July and August on weekends. And then keep it at 9 for the rest of the time, because I mean,
Yeah. What, instead of picking the months, make it 8:30 for the
Amen.
days that we collect for parking.
well, that's the whole,
Well,
that's
that's
And I
the whole,
think
that's the
that's
whole
it, but it
summer,
ain't-
Jerry.
Let's not, no,
July and August?
No, let's not we don't need we can't do new things. Like we can't do we're used to the weekdays, weekend thing.
Right.
So let's stick with that
Yeah,
because
no, I
that's
think
what the
that's-
calendar
yeah.
is now. Um,
But like
when we
those are
looked
the-
at the weekends, I liked the idea of weekends because I thought they'd get more bang for their buck if we chose the
Right.
weekend option. Because there are some days they can't go out at all on the morning tide. So, but Jamie, your idea would be that we keep it at 8:30 just for July and August and all other times it's
Weekends.
till 9.
July and August weekends. And then 9 AM during the weekday for the whole year.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's only a
Oh,
little
wait.
bit of September and a little bit of June.
You
that
said
really
Tuesday and
go.
a Saturday are the same in July and August.
I mean,
So July and August, 8 AM.
but
and then-
apparently not if we had it set up so that they could only go out on weekends and on weekdays and not weekends prior, right?
Right.
There was
I
a
think-
delineation.
I think we should try to be consistent with the time.
I
and
do too.
say-
I think it's easier.
Say 9 weekdays, weekends for the days that they have the time restriction, which is pretty much July and August with a week on either end in September and June. And then see how it goes.
Okay.
If it's an issue on weekends that 9's too late and they can't.
Then we can adjust it, but keep it at 9
Right.
across the board for
Across-
now.
yeah.
I think
And then
that's a
adjust
lot
it.
easier than trying to do,
Change times.
yes.
So
Okay,
is-
so that, there is no, it's just 9 AM across the board for the entire season.
Is there any current change of regulation for holiday, for July 4th or Labor Day if they come
Well,
on?
that
the weekend?
now.
No
No,
holiday.
now it's a
Isn't
weekend.
necessarily
Now
a
they,
beach day, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
like-
I'm just
yeah.
asking whether there is
Yeah.
currently.
Previously, we didn't have,
Holidays either.
holidays.
weekends and
but-
holidays.
But
But
I
we
want to make
also-
note that even here on Memorial Day, we weren't given access Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. And then on July 4th,
I think it was one day for July.
July 4th happened on a Tuesday,
Yeah.
and we didn't have access Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday.
Or Tuesday. Mhm.
So that was something I discussed with Jackie about having the growers possibly be a part of the scheduling process. So maybe we can come up with the tide charts and really
Right.
figure out when we will be out there and what makes most sense,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, do we? I don't necessarily, I just asking if there anything prior to, I mean, I don't, if we're going to, which I agree with, allow on a weekend, we can try to make consistent, just have it go straight through, look at the test, see for a year. That would include Memorial Day, Labor Day, July 4th. I think those are the only holidays within that block. And we take a look at it and we'll look at it again next year. Maybe you'll be back asking for more, or we may have to come in and say, nah, we
Yeah.
think going to 9 was not the greatest idea. Who knows?
Are
But
you,
that,
are you suggesting that are we able to access on holidays as well?
Oh, boy.
Cause I don't personally, I don't think people are rushing down to the beach
It's
before
early.
9 o'clock.
yeah,
even
no,
on a holiday.
yes,
Yeah.
my
Okay.
view was treat them all
Yeah.
the same. A holiday is just a day. It's either on a
Yeah.
weekend or it's on a weekday. It's the same as any other with the time, at least looking at it in for this first year.
Mhm.
And then hopefully staff will take a look at it, or we'll see if we hear some complaints in the middle. We may talk to you guys in the summer, which I really don't want to do, but that might happen.
But I think honestly, if we're gonna do this, if you're gonna do all days until 9 AM, that's it. I think that's a really big concession. Then Christine should be able to weigh in if she has problems. please.
Yeah, before we vote?
No. I'm saying if there are
Oh, if there are problems
problems,
come in during the year and
yes, we will
yes,
pull them in,
hopefully we won't have to pull you in,
Right.
but,
But just to make it clear that that's, yeah.
just to make it clear, because I think it's a huge, it's a big deal to her, whether you guys, it's a big deal to you or not. And I would love to, out of respect for her,
Absolutely.
be able to call you back if there are issues. I'm sure there won't be.
There was one other thing that was brought up about if the beach is going to be closed for foul weather, if we'd be able to access the grants in that scenario.
I would
Um,
thank you.
I know it's sort of difficult to figure out how that would work logistically, but I mean, if nobody's going to be there and we can go out, then it would be a waste of a day.
So how is it now?
It's
If there's foul weather, you can't?
I
go
don't,
out?
kn- I mean, I don't think we've run up against that
If they're on
situation
the
yet.
same schedule. So they're on the same schedule. If it's foul weather, they have to be off the beach by 9 o'clock too.
Oh.
They can't stay till.
Oh, I see.
right,
11.
I see.
So he was saying if the beach is closed for foul weather and it's noon. it's low
Right,
tide.
and it
I see.
happens to be
So,
low
yeah,
tide.
okay, yeah.
D-
Suzanne?
Has anyone come up with what you would want the definition of foul weather to be?
Yeah,
Well,
I would
there's
just
no
say if the
gate
beach is
attendant.
going to be
Close the
closed,
Yeah,
If they close the beach, does
And the-
that happen often?
and there's no attendant?
Well, if it's raining, like pouring rain, she won't put an attendant down there.
Right.
That doesn't mean that people
Beach is
won't.
not closed.
I mean, that's
show
what I
up,
sort
they're
of
just not-
meant that if nobody's going to be there taking money, then we should be allowed to go out and access the farms. Because the reason why nobody's there taking money is, because nobody's coming to the beach to spend the money. So if that in theory is the reason why nobody's there, then in theory, nobody should be there to get in our way or us in their way. It's a very,
Understand.
it's a very like rare circumstance, I know, but I'm just wondering if that's something that they might consider.
Ah,
the select
Christine
board.
says, what if the sun comes out
Huh.
and the beach is never closed?
Oh,
I'm getting
no.
text messages now.
Yes, I understand. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess for that one, it seems too like subjective and mushy to define, and an attempt to define it and then monitor it kind of seems like more effort than it's possibly
Like she said,
worth.
if, say it's 10 o'clock and it's terrible,
Mhm.
then you go out and then 11:30, the sun comes out and it's mobbed.
Well, what if if there's an indefinite circumstance where the beach is gonna be closed, like a hurricane's coming,
We don't want you out there.
okay.
You can go out to get your stuff.
It's that simple.
Safe or secured, but.
I know there's already like protocols in place, but
Yeah.
we sort of assume that if the beach is not gonna be utilized by the town, then that there's no
Yeah,
harm in us
I-
being out there.
I think that's not really our decision. I
Yeah.
think it would have to be more the people down there managing it, so.
Right.
um,
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about consistency today, and I think we're better off, at least in the first
Just doing these changes.
shot, is to be consistent across the board. And we're looking at every day is a day, and every day is we're looking at right, every day is 9 o'clock. And so that makes it very simple, and we're gonna test it, see what happens, and we don't have to worry about, oh, is this foul weather? Maybe that's for next year or the year after, as we try and think about it. I mean, I'm a guy who uses the beach, but I'm not being Jamie's right. You make a living here, or it helps you stay in Eastham, and we want you to stay in Eastham. But let's be consistent, not add another
Element.
layer
yeah.
of judgment, particularly of judgment. in
I'm
there.
not gonna lose any sleep over
Yeah.
what you're
Okay,
doing.
okay.
No.
Don't listen to me.
Don't worry about it.
Feel good.
They're going in the right direction. I also think that, this was really huge and you guys supported it. Because we hadn't ever had driving on the
Right.
beach,
Right?
ever. So it's a really big,
Generally, I'm not
Deal.
a fan, but.
right?
working, That's a whole different animal. You're
So
not
you've
recreating,
kind of,
you're not- yeah.
you've brought the tide over on your side and we'd like to continue that momentum. And I think it will. I
Any
think
more
it will.
puns in here?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
So should we
Um,
vote?
Yeah, there was some, did
Oh.
you want to make a comment? In the back, all right. Oh,
All right, so then, oh.
I'm just gonna let him.
Yeah.
Craig, you
Craig.
want to come up and,
Sure.
sorry. Oh, it's all right. He'll be quick.
Craig Seacon, Orleans. Jamie, you made a comment about that this really doesn't have to do with housing. It does.
Mhm.
I, for one, I'm renting. I don't own a house. If I lose my rental, I lose my grant. Because I'll never get another rental for what I'm paying in Orleans or East End. So
Right.
There is a,
Oh, I think that was her
Housing
point.
attached.
It's
Her point was
really,
this is
it's not directly housing under
But it
that
is
umbrella,
housing.
but it
Okay.
sure affects.
Being able to afford to
living
live in
costs,
East
yep.
Ham is housing.
it's really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I lose my stuff, I'm out. So I'm going to
Yeah.
Texas. Thank you.
No, you're not going to Texas. Don't be
You
ridiculous.
can oyster in Texas. I heard there's oysters.
Yeah.
Oh.
Those warm water oysters.
No, Craig, we're not gonna let you go that easy.
No,
All right, Jamie, I'll entertain a motion.
I would like him to make a motion to extend hours of access to 9 AM across the board.
I'll second that.
All right, any more discussion?
I was gonna say, I just wanted to add that I think we do understand the value of what 8 extra days or 15 extra days
Mhm.
does to your business. And so I was like, ooh, 15 extra days or ooh, 8 extra days.
cool.
Like that seems like a pretty big deal. But no, that was my only comment.
All right, we'll vote. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? 4-0.
Christine,
Thank you.
please
Thank you.
come see us.
Yeah.
Give us-
Thank you all.
I hope
we will
not to see you this
Yes,
summer.
Exactly.
next year we'll work on the schedule together.
See you next year.
All right.
Oh, we're losing our
You
audience.
guys don't want to
I
stay
know.
for
I'll
the
leave.
town meeting warrant?
I think it's still the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The warrant though?
Yeah, they don't want to do the warrant.
I kind of liked the other one.
Nice to meet you. I met you one day
Yeah.
down at, with,
That's why I
yeah.
went and got a couple.
It's awesome.
I think
Now,
it was your first day.
how long have you been here? Is it 3 weeks yet? 3 whole weeks.
Welcome.
We haven't scared you away yet, huh?
No, no,
That's
she's
good.
tough.
Thank you.
Thanks, Devin.
All right, we'll move on to administrative matters, the Nauset Regional High School Agreement.
Okay.
Jerry.
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 That's right. See
All
you,
right.
Dan.
This is why we have Jerry on the
That's right.
board.
That's right. Our
Moments
lawyer,
like this.
our resident lawyer.
Okay. I have a couple of
Uh-oh.
thoughts on the draft that we had. And the first one, and I'll just go through on the pages we had, and we have pages 1 to 13. So it isn't in the agenda because those are the odd ones.
So it's page,
just added
Oh, she had it? Okay, great.
so page 1.
So page 2 of the agreement, holding office vacancies. One of the things that is here that if I'm on the committee, my term ends when the next person is elected and is sworn into office and so forth. And then they have a whole series of defining what vacancies are. But we currently, at least as of the last meeting, have an issue that's not written as a vacancy. That means that would be no one's running for the seat in our town, and that's not viewed as a vacancy. And if things are called a vacancy, we being the select board, have the ability to appoint someone until the next election. So we always have someone there. So I think
Wouldn't the day after the person's term runs out constitute a vacancy?
no,
Like,
because it's defined, with the way it's defined in here, a vacancy is in the event any newly elected or appointed member shall fail to qualify due to death, declination to serve, or refusal to take the oath of office. Such failure shall be a vacancy hereunder. But it's not that no one ran.
but you have someone not taking the oath of office.
You do, but you've got to go back and flip. I'm trying to make it so that
I see.
the
Can
select
appoint
board
someone.
can appoint someone, or not just us, but Wellfleet and
Right, right.
Orleans and Brewster can appoint it.
Yeah,
So-
but how would that work?
We would just appoint them to the next election.
We would appoint someone, one.
4 boards would get together and appoint
No.
somebody?
From our town.
No, it's just
We-
our
just our
town.
town. If
Oh,
we
so
have a
this would
vacancy-
just be the elementary school?
No.
The
no,
regional.
We have a
This is just the
regional,
regional.
Oh, okay. I'm
one of
sorry.
our regional seats. We have 2. And-
Okay.
And so we would, so I would like to see a point in there defining what a vacancy or including it in a definition of a vacancy is no one ran for the position. Sadly, that's
It happens.
something that we have to deal with, and that's not done there. Okay? Next, we go to.
I don't have
Number
it.
is that? Oh,
It's on page 2, which I have in a different thing.
Okay, picture.
Just to follow up with what you just said, Jerry, is that something we can do? That we can add to that?
Well,
it's
this
draft.
is a draft.
Right.
And we want to suggest this is
Suggestion to add to that.
suggestion to
Okay.
add.
You can make suggestions. We can't
Yeah.
guarantee that
Can't
they'll make
guarantee
it.
anything, right?
Right, there it is. Here. For the vacancy.
Perfect, see.
Okay, then if you go to page 3 of the draft agreement,
I have.
it would be section 1. I don't know what the letter is. What's the letter down?
Oh, here, you want this?
This one, no, this, it's 3.
Section 1F. 2,
Okay.
Oh, it was on page 2.
F2 on page 3.
Yeah.
I have no idea, and I'll have to work with somebody, but in reading this, just to let you all know, what it means to apportion
Oh, I know.
the votes, the weight of the votes that Eastham has and the weight of the votes that Brewster has, Orleans and so forth. They talk about it's nearly equal to 1, and you can't have a deviation within 10%, and it makes no sense. Currently, Brewster votes are equal to 1, so they get 4 votes. Orleans has 3 people, their vote weight is 0.8, so they have 2.4 votes. We have 2 and our weight is 1.1, so we have 2.2 votes. And Wellfleet has
Each.
1.1 each, so it's 2.2, and Wellfleet has 1 with a 1.4 weighting, which adds up to 10.
Mhm.
So there are 10 votes. And it's based upon the population of the actual residential population of
Last
each town
census. Yeah.
on the last census. So every 10 years you have to look at. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think someone has to,
It's based on the residential population, not the number of students in school.
correct.
Okay.
Right.
Correct. And that's fine. I just don't understand that. I'll have to talk with somebody. Maybe somebody can come talk
It
to
should
me.
be based on the number of students, not on the.
Well,
No, it
not
should be-
necessarily, but
this
maybe
is-
representation should the number should really equal those numbers and not have them weighted. You know what I mean? Have it,
Oh, change the representative. Well, you can do
because
that.
you
Here
look
they
at
just
the
have-
difference between Orleans and Eastham, it's less than 10% between, but yet they have a 50%.
Yeah.
Now, I get the weighting kind of brings that closer, but it's
Yeah,
still not,
right, because we get 2.2 and they get 2.4.
They only actually have like 600 more people than we do
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. But that's true. I don't know how but maybe we want to have a discussion on section 1F2.
It becomes
Okay.
problematic if you have additional representation, regardless of the weight, you still have another person potentially from another town
Yeah.
representing.
Who
that
can
town.
sway the committee?
Yeah, how it goes. Then we go to number 3,
Oh, boy.
which is the quorum. A quorum is 50% plus 1. With the weighted votes,
Oh, boy.
Brewster and one other town can have a meeting, have a meeting with a quorum, and the other 2 towns are not represented at it.
what about that 2/3 though?
That's 2/3 for certain
Certain topics.
We'll talk on that. I'm just talking about a quorum. And I think that we should you can't have a quorum unless
Each town.
each town is represented, but there's a problem with that, which I will explain.
Uh-uh.
It means that one town can have a veto I'm not jumping on Wellfleet, but you only have
Going
one
into your
person.
notes.
So Wellfleet doesn't like what's going on. The Wellfleet representative never shows up. You can never have a quorum. So you have to have a system that they can, if they miss a regularly scheduled meeting, there's no quorum if there's no town, but that same town can't be absent the next one to stop a quorum. There's got to be some way to write it. But I've been on I worked on a commission where the quorum was an absolute number of 3 out of 5,
Right.
2 vacancies. The one commissioner didn't show up, then you could never have a meeting. But it's also, I don't want a situation, I mean, I don't think I want a situation where Brewster, Orleans and Wellfleet are there, Eastham, the 2 are sick or not there or something. Now with Zoom meetings, it probably won't happen as much, aren't there, and we're not represented at a meeting and they have votes. They can even have a 2/3 vote because we only have. So I think the quorum thing needs to have it that every town, I've seen agreements where every town has to be represented in order to have a quorum.
I feel like that makes sense too. Yeah, like.
Except for if you only have one person.
If you have one person they're missing, that's
That's the problem.
It's the veto problem, which
Yeah.
is why you have to do you can miss a meeting. Okay, the regularly scheduled meeting today, we can't have, but we have another one March 25th.
How about
Yeah.
at least 3 towns have to be represented?
Well, you could have at least 3 towns, but that would still knock one out. I'm not necessarily, that's a vast improvement. Let me put.
Yeah, because I guess what I would be worried about is if Wellfleet only has one person and that one person gets sick or can't come or, then you
Then
don't have a
can't do any-
quorum.
You can't do any work and that's a problem. Yeah.
Okay,
And
how about-
so I think that maybe you do 3. So that,
Sorry.
all right, now.
You could require participation, Jerry, or a certain quantum present, right? So I don't know what that number might be, but if 80% of the committee shows up regardless of, one
Mhm.
town not showing up,
Right.
something like that.
Well, it's still 50%, but I think with Jackie's compromise, it may be worth looking at. But they have at least 3 towns have to be represented because Brewster and any town there makes 50%, so they can go forward and you have 2 towns
towns.
missing.
Yeah.
And so I think
And you could you have one from each town? One from each town would make a quorum,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Or,
Well, Brewster has
well, no,
4.
you need 5.
or let's see, what is it?
7, 8.
1.4, 1,
So you need 5, right?
1.4, 1, 1.1, and 0.8. Yeah, you'd need 5 people. You couldn't have 4 people. Well, from each town, yeah. Okay, so that's where I'm on the quorum. All right. Section 2, which is still on the same page, and this is Jerry. This is not something that is, and you guys can really disagree with me on this. The regional school district schools shall consist of facilities to serve the needs of grades 6 through 12. That means if we decide at some point, now listen, if we decide we have a brand new high school and we want to move 7th and 8th grade over there, move the 6th grades back to elementary school, you have to change the whole agreement. What I would like to do, what I propose, that it can change it with that 6 through 12 can be changed without being viewed as an amendment. That's stated up here in, which is stated in another section here.
But
Go ahead.
wouldn't that require a whole fairly significant restructuring anyway if we decided to do that? And maybe you would want it.
One process built in.
Yeah, because all the towns then, you
All
can't
ev-
just have one town pull
Oh,
their
they,
6th
right,
graders.
they got to pull them all in. It has to be an agreement, but
Right.
you have to go through
This process, which is like changing the charter.
charter.
Oh,
And you
okay, so
go
that was
through
my
there,
next
all-
question
All the
is
towns would have to
how-
agree
You build it in so
to
that
make-
you-
Oh, I didn't realize that amending this.
so that you give
That's
some,
why we haven't done it in 40 years or, yeah.
so you have some flex, you're giving you're giving the committee, the regional school system and the towns a little bit more flexibility. It's easier to change, to make that change. It has nothing to do with today. It could stay written the way it is now and it won't affect.
But really, even with the charter, we can go back any year. It doesn't have to be the 10-year that our charters do and make changes if we want. It does have to go to town meeting, and this obviously would have to go. I
Four.
don't think you'd have.
Doesn't this have to go to the commissioner? This has to go to the commissioner if you make this change as well.
In each town meeting.
And
Each town meeting plus the commissioner of the state.
Yes.
Whereas if you change it, sort of the way I do, it only has to go through town meetings. We don't have to worry about the state of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Well, but the same with the charter, the charter has to be approved also at the state level.
But if he's saying
For each change.
If we reword this, you don't have, we can,
wouldn't have to.
we can send the sixth graders back to the elementary school and the others up, or even make it 7, 8, 9, middle school, junior high and 10, 11, 12, all
It gives
kinds of
the
different
ability to-
changes. Gives the ability to
So you
make some
change it
changes.
now and then
It doesn't change.
Well,
You
we'd
just-
all have to agree, right? There'd be a process.
Some provision that would allow for flexibility in that with the approval of each of the select boards of each of the
Right.
member towns.
Yeah. There's a point in,
Add a line to it or a section A or something to that. That would create that clause. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, and there's a provision just before it, and I suddenly can't find it, where there is a way to make a change.
Whether or not.
even page.
Without it
Sorry.
looking at,
That's all right.
yeah, anyway, there you go.
An email.
So we'll just mark that as something that, go ahead, Suzanne.
I feel like like I want that flexibility for us and whatnot, but I feel like in the event that that happens, other parts of this are gonna have to like something else is gonna have to be revisited in a fairly major way, right? If we decide to absorb a sixth grade into our elementary school.
Oh, that's a major
Like,
change.
it
for
just
each-
seems like, I don't know,
But it's saying that if the towns underwent that process, they would not find a hang up in this document that would prevent it from moving forward.
okay, and it
It's
wouldn't just
not-
be the whole rest of the document too need to be.
No,
No,
Okay,
no, because there
all
are a few spots that I've tried to catch them where we say 6 to 12 and you just say
Right.
per section 2. Instead of,
Okay.
instead of
Alright.
that is the way to do it. If no one-
So it's kind of one of those things where like, if for some reason all the towns did go through this process and did all this work, they would hit a wall here.
Hmm.
And that could be problematic, whereas this
Difficult.
is saying, we are giving you the option to go to a vote to change this clause without having to go through the whole.
I like it. I think it would still be hard enough.
It would still, yeah, right?
Very difficult.
I don't think it
Because I
would be
think it should be
easy.
hard.
I agree with you, because
Yeah,
that
it should be
language
hard.
is
Yes.
restrictive.
Yes, it should be difficult.
It should be
It should
different.
be, yeah.
Could be, but I just,
But
I'm
that
not
language-
necessarily, the state seems to always mess up things the
I
way
know.
we want to do stuff. So anyway, that's why I brought that up.
All right.
Then if you go to page 4,
Oh, good. We're moving along to 4.
yeah, well, we're moving quickly.
There's only
Right on,
13.
right on the top of page 4, this is a silly question. It says that in the general area, the schools will be located in the general area within a 5-mile radius from the intersection of Mid Cape Highway.
Oh, my God.
Route
Samoset.
6 and Samoset Road in Eastham. Is Route 6 called Mid Cape Highway out here?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Then we don't, that's
Tell
good,
us
fine,
the
I'm done.
General area.
With
of-
that one, done
Here's
with
the
that one. I just didn't
Yeah,
think
but
that, I
enjoy
thought the Mid Cape was just ended in
Oh.
the circle, but that's okay.
Route 6. Yeah, we could change that to.
Just
Route
change it to
6.
Route 6, Route 6 in Samoset in Eastham. Just take out Mid Cape and the parens.
All right. I guess the whole document.
All right.
Yeah.
I went to my email.
Then if we go down to section 4, appointment and payment of cost by the district. After the new B, after the first sentence, there is a whole paragraph, I guess, starting with limitation, lowercase l. And as you go down to the next one, it's under C, it
C.
looks like including without limitation. It seems to me, and then the next one's ratio. I don't know where they, what they apply to. they're talking about capital costs and operating costs, and I think the first one, limitation, applies only to capital costs. And I don't know where the including goes. The ratio of the member to town and the rolling average,
And that's where it says 612.
the 612, you'd have to put,
Yeah.
what you'd have to cite section 2 for that if you want.
Right, where it says 6 to 12, yeah.
Yeah, students or still students eligible in grades listed in section 2. So those don't seem to be sentences, or there's no colon.
Seems
Makes
to be
sense.
something missing
There's
because the
something
numbers,
missing.
the letters are even
It-
missing.
Yeah, it
Goes
doesn't,
from
Yeah.
it doesn't
B,
follow.
C.
Yeah, there's a comma and a lowercase
Yeah,
including,
yeah,
like that
yeah,
doesn't, it's like something's missing.
And where's it work? So that's it. And then when you go to page 5, the only things are grades 6 to 12 are
Yep,
in
section.
there 4 times.
So refer to
You
section
can
2.
refer to section 2. Transportation was fine. If you go to page 7, section 7, which is withdrawal, that means when
Okay.
East End wants to withdraw or somebody. I just wanted to point out that the committee would set up an amendment to this agreement. The
School committee?
school
On
committee,
the school committee.
and when they set up it goes, it's automatically, the select board would have to put it on
Their agenda.
on the warrants, not on, would automatically be put on, it would be similar to, the way I read it, similar to a petitioned article. I don't
Okay.
know if we want that or not. I just brought that up. I mean, I don't want to fight with the committee. Somebody wants to leave. I mean, however it works. But
Well, it's kind of huge though. If a town wants to leave, right? That's what we're talking about?
Mhm.
yes,
That's
if the
pretty
town wants to
big.
leave, it's huge.
So that would have huge economic consequences on the 3 remaining towns.
There is a significant, in the withdrawal, there's a significant amount of, they have to pay the indebtedness,
Capital,
still
right,
paying the
okay.
capital indebtedness and so forth.
Okay.
So there's a very, I looked at this, if
It's
you,
highly
if I
unlikely.
were saying, if I were East End, we wanted to leave, I look at this and say, you don't want to leave.
Right.
It's
We
the
should have talked
cost-
to the Brexit people.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's there, so just pointing out that, when the committee comes together with changing it, it has to go on the warrant without the approval of any of the select boards of the course of the towns. But yeah, even the withdrawal, Jackie even says they have to pay OPEB and retirement stuff as well for those leaving. Okay, so it's pretty,
big,
it's fairly restrictive.
And would it go on every town?
Oh, yeah.
Every town
town's-
would sign this.
Every town's town meeting would have to vote for
Mhm.
for them to.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it would have, and it would have to be approved by all 4
Sure,
towns.
okay,
The
so-
town leaving and the 3 staying.
Would have to really,
Yeah, it wouldn't be,
Go
it wouldn't be a
sideways.
majority, it would be each town would have to approve, the way it's written.
okay.
Then you go to page 9,
Yeah.
right on the top, they've got things as lowercase on the committee from withdrawing township. I don't know where that connects.
Right, exactly. It's another one
That's
that's
another one that
disconnected.
doesn't connect.
Angling,
So I
right.
just don't know where it goes. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just don't know where it
Not
connects.
finished though.
Page 9,
9.
the top of page 9, the second paragraph,
Yeah.
it just
right-
starts
right
mid-sentence.
there,
Yeah,
Jackie.
yeah, got it here.
Oh, okay, on the committee from,
Yeah, and it's,
Yeah.
it is a period after 5 million
Right.
and then it's just sitting there.
okay.
Okay.
Section.
Ugh. Then if you go down to, still on 9 on page, section 8C is in Charles. They have in the first sentence, this is one of the few I caught up. They have a period with a capital except, that's not a sentence, so it should be a comma after the amendment and lowercase e for except.
You really Read this thoroughly, Jerry.
Yeah, she
Well,
took your.
I just call, yeah, listen.
You understood. the
Suzanne
intent.
wrote to me, I'm depending upon, my eyes are on you. I'm looking at you, Jerry, and so, okay, I got this.
I know, I
this
like
weight-
response,
this
I was
weight
like,
on me.
Don't know what day it
I
is.
really don't know what day it is.
I
It's like,
started
oh,
looking
man.
at it, I was like, oh.
On page 10,
It's so
under
good.
budget, section 9. Right near the end of A, they have that they have to send something to the chairman of the select board. Every place else it's chairperson, they just missed it. And then at the right at the end of that section A, there's and at least, and that should
You
be,
don't need.
that should be deleted as well.
Got to extend that strike out.
All right, then we go to page 11. We're still on section 9. Under
F.
under F, I think, new F, talks about that the annual budget has to be approved by 2/3 of the member towns by an affirmative vote of the appropriating authorities for such member towns. Is that the town meeting? It's not defined who the appropriate
Yeah, so two,
By the
authorities. I think
towns.
it's gotta be and it's in our town. This is something that we.
right, and so 2/3 of the
2/3
towns.
of the town have to vote.
So
in
if one
favor of the
vote
school budget.
Doesn't, it
No,
doesn't matter.
No, well, if it,
Right?
except the appropriating authorities, that would be the town meeting. So you would need a 2/3 vote of the town to approve
No,
the school budget.
No, of all towns.
no, of all towns, of the member towns, so basically 2 out of 3 towns.
Would it be a quantity
out of 4
or would
towns.
it
Oh,
be a
yes.
town?
Well, right,
You
it
know
would-
what I mean?
No,
You can't have
2/3 no, it says 2/3 of the member towns by an affirmative vote. So yeah, you would have to have 3 towns. You
You'd have
couldn't
to have 3.
One
Is
town.
this an overall vote or is this numbers of total? In
No,
total?
This would be each town.
I
So
think
each
it's
town
just
meeting.
the
Okay.
towns as a whole.
Okay,
right?
now that I understand it, like I just want to make sure we're not.
Cause I
wait-
know that has come up before where people say, oh, what if Brewster votes no? Well, guess what? If the other ones vote yes,
It's done.
it's done.
Well, that's why
And they gotta scramble.
that's why it's difficult, for example, at town meeting, if you had a disagreement with the school budget, you really have a yes, no vote, but if we voted no in Eastham and everybody voted yes,
Doesn't matter.
we
You
wouldn't
still
have
have to
no.
come up-
It'd be
Oh, no, we
worse.
would have
We
to.
wouldn't have the appropriations.
Right.
We'd have to find the money elsewhere,
That's
have a
right.
special meeting, so
That's
it's
right.
difficult.
No. I
Jerry,
think-
in your reading of this, on that section that you're referencing.
Yes,
It doesn't say what happens if there is not a 2/3 vote. The reason I mentioned, and I just want to make sure that you agree that that's what it doesn't say, because
it doesn't say what happens if a town votes.
There's in other
if it
communities-
no.
so then you have a dead end. The only option is to keep voting until you get 2/3. In other communities, they have provisions for regional district,
A regional
meeting,
district vote.
which
Well,
is
okay.
all
That's a good
4
point.
towns, it's a meeting hosted by the district, which all 4 towns can attend, but if one town chooses to not attend because they don't like it, the other towns can outvote them.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, Rich. There's nothing, if 2 towns vote no. You
What
have to,
next?
what next? They go back to the
If
drawing
one
board
town
and
votes
try
no.
again. So there's no other provision. That might be something that's
No, it'd
worth
be, it's not
discussing.
2 if one town votes no. Because
If one town
In
votes no,
disagreement.
it's 2/3 that you have it.
Right.
The budget's approved.
But if it doesn't pass.
Oh, right,
Say
yeah,
there's
I'm
2
sorry, yeah.
towns that vote.
you
yeah.
need 2 towns to vote.
If
no.
2 towns vote no, there's nothing that says
Right.
there, you could add that if you wanted to.
So is that what it is currently? If 2 towns vote no?
If 2 towns vote no,
Right.
everybody's got to go back to the drawing. The school committee has to come up with another budget or meet the needs, and it comes through the whole process again and.
I mean, I
Special-
think
special
honestly,
town
that's from a municipal perspective, that's probably preferable because an arrangement where you provide for a district-wide meeting in lieu of each individual town, then the town that's got the problems,
Right.
it loses representation, especially if you're a small town.
Well, yeah, if Eastham and Wellfleet disagreed, but Orleans and Brewster, their numbers, if their population's a little higher, they could win. Anyway, I just raised that one. These are, and the only other one I have is on page 11. Section 10A. It says that the district shall accept all students who reside in any member town of the district who have completed the 5th grade. And I would change that to if you agree with pulling out 6 to 12 and leave the opening to the grade prior to the grades outlined in section 2. So in other words,
Because if we changed it.
it could
yes.
be, you have to, if you
Could be the 6th grade.
it could be complete the 6th grade, or if
Could
you
be,
do something
yeah.
different, it could be completing the 4th grade, there, however it works. Because I came from a town that changed elementary schools 1 to
Right.
1 to 3, and then 4 to 6 was in another school, and then
Oh,
7
Dennis.
and 8 in another, and so
Den-
forth.
DY just did that. Yeah.
Did they?
Mhm.
Yeah. So you can make lots of different changes, and the fact that our elementary schools are, outside the district in that sense, you have that and that's what I got for my quick reading, and thank you for putting up with me.
No, this was great, Jerry. This was so helpful.
And did you look at the finance committee recommendation that
I-
the budget's done earlier?
I did, but I talked to Mary
Mhm.
and she said that they had a different document. So there's no way to cross-reference what the finance committee,
Oh, they just made a
Yeah.
list of recommendations.
But they did.
but didn't
put-
say,
they
I
where
don't
they
know
were.
where it is.
Paragraph 6, item C,
Yeah,
doesn't-
they didn't give me, that's all they gave me.
But I was gonna ask you the question about, the 3-year rolling average
Oh, yeah, that's.
applied to all but not just this limited share for student, but also the capital.
Mhm.
Do you find out did they address that yet, or?
My understanding that they have agreed to the 3-year rolling average.
For every-
For capital also? Oh, that's great.
Mhm.
All right.
May I offer my
I
2
did
cents?
give Jerry my
Could-
notes.
Here, Mary, here you go, Mary. Here.
Could
Let me get this back.
Rich offer his 2 cents?
Rich is gonna give us his.
I haven't done the in-depth analysis that Jerry has. But I do have a few things from my past experiences that I just want to raise. So as we go through this process, the finance committee and the select board can consider it and give the school committee their feedback. You just referenced the apportionment of cost, capital and debt on 3-year rolling average, which is typical or on a participation percentage, whether it's an average or most recent. The one thing that occurs that's been discussed in other communities that have gone through revisions of school agreements is there is a base amount that of a value of being in the district, whether, what I'm saying, so in other words,
Hmm.
you need to have a middle school. What's the difference whether you have 3 people attending or 30 people attending? You have a middle school that you can send your 3 or your 30 students. And so perhaps with there's declining enrollments and limited enrollments in our 4 participants, that a proportion might not be appropriate. So sometimes, there's been some discussions and other agreements, and I don't know that any of that have passed us through yet, but we could find out. Is there a base level? And I'm just making up a number, but for example, if your debt service costs for a high school or a middle school, and
Oh, I see what you're saying.
you're a 1/4 participant, maybe you got to provide for half of the debt service, 25%. And then the other half is based on an apportionment, something
So
like
that
that.
you never drop below.
Because
That makes sense.
you
So
got to
the minimum
participate in it. You
floor.
got to have a high school and a middle school to go
We
to.
have to have a special needs department. We have to have high school, middle
They
school.
have to be
It's
there.
like our water
Yeah.
bill.
So it's almost like a minimum
Exactly.
participation.
So you would have a minimum,
More water.
similar to the alternative minimum
Makes sense.
tax kind of.
For the water bill,
There's a bill.
or water bill.
Water bill, you have a 9.
Yeah.
Now it's.
Flat fee, and then you have
Yeah.
usage and.
No, I
So
think that makes sense.
that's a bit far afield from what I'm sure they've discussed. And I don't know how far along they think they are in this, but this is our first draft of reviewing it. And so I thought I'd offer that up at this time.
Now, if we could just all get the same copy.
So,
And
do
then-
you have any, to give them any, free advice worth what they paid for, but advice on how to set that minimum or what you're looking at on the minimum?
I could come up with all kinds of calculations, but at
Yes,
the
I
end of the day,
understand.
it becomes more of a political negotiation. So what's the point, right?
All right.
But it just occurs that there ought to be a minimum to participate
Right.
because you have the facility available to
Right,
you.
okay. Yes, that's a good point.
And that could be rolled out for debt service, that could be rolled out for capital, and perhaps you could even say that there's a minimum amount of operating budget that has to be there
Mhm.
for you to, you could go as far as you want with it.
And that would help kind of stabilize from year to year too, right? Because
Yes.
the town would be like, okay, well, we
Right.
know it's
Right,
gonna
it's a
be
base
this
amount.
amount, the base amount, and then
And
then
only
you have the
percentage
3-year
fluctuates.
rolling average on top of that, so it would probably be less bumpy still.
Exactly.
Good point.
And the other point, major point, and there's lots of little nits, but of the major points, they spend some time talking about apportionment of costs based on participation, which is in our regional agreement, or on the statutory method provided by law. And honestly, I'm not a lawyer on this, but I don't understand why that has to be in the agreement, because that is already existing state law. So why are you putting things that might end up changing between time this gets?
Oh, I understand.
So just, you're gonna apportion it based, you've always been the option of the regional agreement has a default method, and then the state law has the required method unless you elect to use the.
All right,
the
so you would
deferred.
just, in other words,
Just say that.
you would have it just cite the statute or the statutory thing in Mass General Law,
Or
blah,
in
blah,
Mass
blah,
General
blah.
law,
That's it.
or in accordance with this regional agreement, if all towns agree,
Right.
which is what we do now.
That makes sense. Don't rewrite something that could change, that you have no control over change.
The other part that goes into this is it does give the school committee the discretion now to say which method they want to use. And that really, in my opinion, is not their discretion. It's the town's discretion. I mean, they can have a recommendation, of course, but we're the ones funding it and paying the bill.
And is that
And
in
that's
the-
actually
Very least, we should decide how. We're-
And
Is that not included? Or is that,
no, it's new powers that the school committee has to say which method they want to use.
that's included in this document?
Yes. And that's actually what's happened for this fiscal year. They've told us that they want to use the statutory method, which will be the first time
In 50
in the
years.
history of our district of
Wow.
doing that,
Randomly without telling us.
which I can
Whatever.
just tell you from experience in other districts, as soon as that Pandora's box is opened, it will never be closed, because there will always be someone that's winning on one method and someone that's losing on a method, and they will always vote their interest. And so it's, becomes a political issue, and it makes discussing of the budgets for the schools
Right.
at the expense of town side costs, because we have no choice but to fund their assessment once it passes, that much more difficult.
Well, and the way this draft is written, all 4 towns have to approve the alternative method each
That's
fiscal
always been
year.
the
So if
case.
one says no, you're back to the statutory method.
And that's always been the case, and all 4 towns have always had either as
Right.
part of their motion or as a
Yeah,
separate.
no,
The entire history until this year.
Why?
So which is fine if a town
Random.
if a town agrees to, determines that they don't want to fund the alternative method, that's their prerogative. I just think it ought to come from that other town, not from the school committee telling us all that we ought to do it.
So
They said it was because they had the power to do it.
why, that's a bad reason.
Honestly, that's what is in writing.
Well, cool.
They have
Just
the
because
power
you
to do it.
can doesn't mean you should.
Mm.
And so I'm wondering, so we just had this discussion with some edits and what we would like to see in it. And do we think the school committee is agreeable to trying to get those in?
We won't know until we send it to them.
Well, I just meant like conceptually.
Oh, are they asking for our input?
To
Yes, I think
incorporate
they
it?
did.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
So
don't
there-
forget, at the end of the day, all the towns need
We have
to
to
100%
pass it.
agree to change this agreement.
right, but we've had on the warrant, each of the 4 towns have on the warrant to use the alternative method, which is a ratio of students.
Right.
They're proposing for this year not to have that.
made a
They've-
decision.
No, it's not
They've
proposing.
made it, so typically what happens is when you get and participate in a regional school district, you get an assessment, budget summary page saying, here's your assessment on the regional school district methodology, alternative, or based on the statutory method. And then the towns vote whatever they want to vote. In this case, we've been assigned a budget summary page with an assessment clearly marked based on the statutory method as voted by the school committee.
Okay.
Will you? My brain is
Yeah.
slow
I mean, if it
right
was ever
now,
a school committee
so-
decision, why would every town ever have the option to recommend the other method,
Right.
to vote the other method? You know what I
So
mean?
what does that
Yes.
change for us then? The alternative is to do ratio of students. The statute, is it just
It just,
Statutory
split
method
by 4?
contemplates what's called the foundation budget and establishes minimum costs. And you got to figure out each town's net school, it's a complicated formula. At the end of the day, and then anything excess costs over that foundation budget is based on the region agreement, which is proportional. But it's only on the excess, not on everything. So, in our case, so, we are not a beneficiary this year. And which is fine. It doesn't bother me because I know how this goes. And in other years, I'm sure we were beneficiaries. And this is kind of my point, is you end up having this ongoing back and forth where no town will ever give anything because they got screwed 5 years ago type of thing. Excuse my language, but that's what happens. And so for this year, it's about a $51,000 additional cost to Eastham and a $51,000 savings to Brewster. And the other two towns are essentially, break even,
And
plus or minus a few bucks.
That's for this coming budget? They
Mhm.
decided to
Mhm.
do that just recently?
because this current budget wasn't complicated enough.
Right, okay, so
Yeah,
that was
we-
kind of my feeling. I was like, now
And not to-
is the time.
Not to be too accusatory, especially in public, but a lot of these changes are weighted to a large participant. We all know who the largest participant is. And I think we need to be cognizant of these changes that are all redlined and marked for improvement aren't necessarily beneficial to our interests or a smaller town's interest.
And I'm not honestly trying to throw the school committee under the bus for the right to make the decision, but it was not discussed with any of us. We didn't even, the town managers and the finance directors didn't even get an email saying, we're
Ex-
considering changing the formula this year. So it was a very odd blindside to get a budget based on a formula that we literally have
Is it
never
on their
used.
agenda to do it?
It must have been.
It happened at one of their meetings where they discussed it and voted on it at that meeting. And that was when they determined that they wouldn't use the alternative method, that they would use the statutory method.
Yeah, that vote, it's a little odd and, I get it, but they go through and they do their budget without regard to assessment, really. Their budget is their budget. And then when the budget's set, then they figure out how you're gonna assess that amount of budget. And that, the chips fall where they may at that point, except for this decision point of which methodology you want to use, which historically has always been left to the towns to vote as the regional school agreement. In this case, they inserted themselves and said, here's our budget, we approve our budget, and we're approving this assessment methodology.
I just like to add another thing, that when we've been using the alternative method all along.
Mhm.
So this is the first year that we're using the statutory method, which is what they voted on.
Mhm.
But the other thing that we're not applying this year and would most likely be applying next year will be the 3-year rolling average.
Right.
So we've changed from alternative to statutory for this year. And the plan is to go to the 3-year rolling average starting next year.
So it's gonna change.
Or the year after, probably.
And how's that,
Whenever, yeah,
how does
can't
it,
be approved
And I can't
in time
ima-
this year.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the 3-year rolling average, we did have increased participation this year. But if we had an average, it would,
Right.
the difference is negligible on that. It's
but
the,
if we use the statutory method, why do you need the 3-year rolling average?
because there's still a piece to the extent each town funds its education services in excess of its net school spending requirement, that excess amount has to be apportioned on some basis. And so you can do it on the basis of a participation, which could be determined each year or on an average. That at this point now becomes very minor element of it, right?
I was hoping that we were looking to get some consistency for our budgeting
Mhm.
year to year in doing this. And so I guess my understanding is that having the option to choose how they want to assess it on a yearly basis kind of just throws a wrench in it and then adds this level of like unpredictability that I don't really want to, I don't want staff to have to field that. I don't want to have to wonder every year which is going to be used. And the budget's already such a contentious issue of when they get it to us and the form it's in and so on and so forth. So I'm not,
The two methods is never gonna go away, whether the school committee tells us what they want to use or whether we have to vote it as each of 4 towns. So that doesn't solve that.
well, I
But
guess,
I think what it does is it, in this agreement, as drafted, as one of the changes, it gives them the power to tell you which one they get, and that, I don't think,
right.
absent that, I don't think. they
Jerry,
have
it's like, what yourself?
I missed it.
What,
Where is it? Where is it? addressed?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at is that I would be uncomfortable with the school committee
Having the,
to just tell us.
Yeah.
What it's gonna be. And I'm still a little fuzzy on what the alternative is to make that decision if the school committee doesn't
You're
have
right.
that power.
I missed it. It's the top of page 5.
Yeah.
and you just found it. Jeez.
That's the first partial paragraph.
have
the
the
last
option to
sentence.
vote.
Starts on page 4, it goes to page 5, and it says it's the school committee that will determine.
Yeah,
the
it's,
method.
yeah, it's just that last sentence. Should be deleted.
Based on. the-
Committee will have the option to vote the alternative assessment or statutory. Is there an alternative?
Yeah, the alternative,
We have some-
Just don't give them the power to tell you.
Then who
The
makes it?
default
at
is
the
each
end?
town decides.
Oh,
Suspect I might be able to shed some light on some of this discussion.
Do you mind coming up to a
Well,
mic,
the mic,
Peter?
Peter?
Just, you guys can both come up
you
here.
can
if
both,
want.
yeah.
And Mary also, but I've been to I went to all the subcommittee meetings on the revising the regional agreement. And I've been to a lot of the school committee meetings this year too. So the reason the regional agreement got opened up, and maybe you already know this, is because Brewster suggested the 3-year rolling average.
Yes, yeah.
Once they opened it up, and it's 20 years or more old, they found that a lot of it didn't comply with current DESE rules, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The 3-year rolling average, I don't even think is in the draft that you just read through. All the other changes in that, all the red lines were put in by the council that was hired by the district council that went through to try to make the agreement comply with state law. So I suspect that the school committee does have the power to vote alternate versus statutory method. Because
Then why would they add it to the agreement that they have it if they already had it?
no, they added it because it wasn't in the agreement and it should be in there is what I suspect.
But if
Because
it's in state law.
I
why-
disagree, I'm not an attorney, but I disagree.
Well,
That's why, that's the problem I have with a lot of this language, Peter, is they're adding language that is already in state law. Why would you add that? It's not necessary if state law provides for it.
Well, I guess.
But if state
it's
law
the
changes,
regional
they retain
agreement.
the.
So if someone wanted to look up what the agreement was, they could find out who's in charge of deciding the formula.
But
But-
even if you're in charge of deciding the formula,
If it's
I mean,
state law.
every year we have many budget meetings with the school where the school superintendent and the school finance director meets with the finance director and the town managers. And we go through what, any problems, any issues, what's coming up. You know, we got to opine about how long the debt should be for the Nauset High School. I mean, we've worked together on so many issues over the years. This is the very first time that the school committee, in my mind, has made a unilateral decision without discussing it with anyone when it dramatically impacts us. This is not a minor impact for us. It's dramatic because it changes our practice suddenly and
And-
without any warning.
I would defer to Jerry's experience certainly, but you know, you hire an attorney to represent your interests and I'm not, you know, we haven't hired this attorney, the district has, so I would
Okay.
appreciate their expertise and their advice, but would always want to have my own expertise and advice to advise us as well. So.
Sure.
Yeah, well, look, you hire an attorney and this is what I kind of want to go. Is this against the law?
Right.
Is what the attorney is going to look at. And if it's not against the law, then yeah, it's
You do it.
okay, you go this way.
Right.
So I think we should have our town council take a quick look at that and,
Jerry?
yeah.
Well, a couple of things. So when the whole statutory thing that came up at a school committee meeting. Okay, backing up, the existing agreement that we've gone under for the last 25 years, whatever. In the agreement is the alternative method, just ratio students per total enrollment. So that's what people didn't realize until this agreement got opened up was that in the alternate method, if one town votes against the budget, it goes down. In the statutory method, it's 2/3. And that's why the school committee voted to go statutory. And as far as I watched the meeting, I didn't go to that one. I watched it. That's the only reason they voted for the statutory.
Again,
That
that's my
makes-
prior point.
Oh,
Why were you giving the power to the school committee when it's been the decision of each town?
And a lot of.
In a year where there's a huge budget increase and we have a huge override.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of the members of the school committee didn't know that was going to come up at that meeting for a vote and were surprised by it, and I don't think really
So
understood.
then why did it
but
even, why
it
did it,
shouldn't have
who
come up
brought
for a
up
vote then.
the idea of it coming up for a vote?
The chairman just brought it up at the meeting,
Who's the
It should have
chairperson?
been on the
Because they
agenda. if
wanted-
They were gonna
who's the
vote
chairperson,
on
Peter?
it.
Chris Easley.
Easily.
It's either from
Oh.
Wellfleet.
Well,
You can't,
because they had to get their budget out to the towns with the assessments. So they had to
Just show
if
the
they
requirements.
realized they finally realized there was a difference between the two methods, about one town can vote it down. And they wanted to get the budget out for this year. And they wanted to, or some of them wanted to.
But we've always,
Have
and
the
just to
one
be clear
town.
though, we've always had the ability for one town to vote it down,
Always,
never
yes.
always.
But it's never happened,
Right.
right?
Well,
Right.
And this
right.
is my, you know,
But-
my concern really isn't about the numbers of the methodology, because
It
over
is.
time, I think it's negligible in the scheme of things, honestly. But it creates a political issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you introduce this, every year,
Well,
One town versus another.
well, that's another thing that the vice chair of this committee said during that meeting was she absolutely did not want the idea of it's going to cost you this much under the alternative and this much under statutory. She wanted to go with one and stay with
Stay
it
with
and
it.
put it right into the agreement.
But that's what they produced all before, right?
Right, that's what we've done for
They
the past
always
30 years.
produce the one, here's the two
Alternative method.
and that's,
alternative methods.
No,
and that's the nature of my
Yes.
feedback,
Yeah.
is if we have a base level participation, sharing over a base level, and, you know, we can all agree to that,
Yeah, 25.
and we don't have to be going back and forth every year, you know?
no.
I don't really think that the committee members that voted on it fully understood the ramifications and exactly how it worked.
But
I'm sure.
I mean, people still may think that the statutory is better just so that one town can't throw a monkey wrench into the whole thing. But, okay, my final point, and I'll sit back in my seat,
No,
is
That's
that, you know, this is just the first salvo, it's the council that they hired to go through it, to try to bring it up to. But Brewster wrote a 3-page letter, which I thought might have been in your packet, but it's not, about because the Brewster Finance
Got some
Committee reached
emails.
out to the four finance committees. And we also had two meetings, I think, two or three, about the regional agreement. And they had some ideas that they want to see in there. The little one pager you got that Tom McNamara wrote up from our committee was kind of in response to that. Basically just the 3-year rolling average. I can't remember what the other big point was. Anyway, the school committee wants to take its time and hear from all the towns. I think it was at the last subcommittee meeting where they said they wanted to send the Brewster letter out to the 4 towns. So obviously you haven't received it yet.
We did
But-
get an email from Peter Lombardi, didn't we?
From
Mhm.
Peter, maybe, yeah. And so I'm thinking that what might be a good way forward is to have a subcommittee or whatever it would be of Rich and somebody from the select board and somebody from the finance committee to look at this whole thing and see what the other towns are, and get involved in the process, because the school committee, I think, wants to have input from all the towns.
To
And it's
Peter's,
not going to come to town meeting till a year from now.
to Peter's point, and I'm a strong advocate of this, it might put me at odds with some of the school folks, but I know they think this is their agreement, but it's not their agreement.
Sorry.
The 4 towns agreement.
Yes, it is.
The
yeah.
4 towns need to participate and come to consensus and ensure that they can each pass it by town meeting, regardless of what the school committee or their council is telling them needs to be in it.
Mhm.
It's almost beside the point, because if it can't pass, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if it's bad news, we recommend to Eastham and not go. And if the town agrees with us, it doesn't happen. Because this has to be agreed by each town.
So I guess, long story short, is we need more engagement with this.
They weren't
Yeah.
hoping to get this on this year's town.
No.
Yeah. I was like,
But do we have on the warrant this year? I looked through a draft. We have the warrant this year. The alternative method is a warrant article on it this year.
No,
And
so,
our warrant draft so far?
So this will be a topic of discussion when we get to probably the budget hearing next week or whenever that is.
Definitely.
20.
Right now,
25th, isn't
what
it?
we've included in the budget is the assessment as provided to us, which is on the statutory basis, and that's a point of discussion is, do we want to provide, I don't believe we're required to accept that. I mean, we could, if we're required to accept what they're presenting to us, then we're not required to vote yes. And so we could vote, we'll vote this with this method. The problem is, it causes a conundrum, as Peter indicated, because if that's our basis, it takes one person to say no. One town, I should say.
And how many have to say no now? If we do the statutory method, is it 2 or 3?
If you're mandated to do the statutory, would have to be 2, would have to say no. But I don't, again, just because
Likely.
they said that that's what they're assessing it at, doesn't mean, in my opinion, that you gotta accept that.
Do you remember which meeting they had that discussion at?
Yeah, I want to watch.
229.
229, all right.
It's actually recording.
Good.
Oh, yeah, see if it was posted on the agenda.
Whoa.
Call to order.
Yeah, wow, well,
yeah, that's,
that was not put on their agenda for a
No.
vote.
yeah.
No, and it should have specifically been put on the agenda as something they would have voted on.
February 29th, 2024, 6 p.m.
This is a great example of a vague agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Last chair said that she was challenged. There's someone at some meeting, and she said that legally it didn't have to be, didn't have to say on the agenda, but
Didn't have to be on the
I
agenda.
don't know about that.
law,
I feel like
that's,
we just went to an open meeting law training and that was
huge open-
not the case.
Right?
Yeah,
Especially when you vote on it.
especially when you vote
It's one
on
thing to
it.
talk about it. It's another thing to vote on it.
Then. So then it's not on the agenda. Do we have any actions that we could take?
Well, even if it's on the agenda and this is I don't believe they have the power to tell us what methodology to use, whether it's on the agenda or not. So I think that's a question we
I
gotta
think
Minute
We should
page.
say,
I would have
this
to
needs to
ask
be addressed. I don't think we pretend like this didn't happen. I think this needs
Oh,
to be
no.
addressed.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's definitely an open discussion point for our budget discussions.
Oof.
It's too bad because we've gotten along for so long.
Oh, thank
I know,
yes.
I
You know,
was
you-
like,
you
I
go
feel
along and
exactly
it
what
works.
I heard.
They
50
used to
years,
call
no
East End the
problems.
sweet town.
You have 6
No
o'clock.
minutes.
Yeah, I'm changing this a little bit. That one behind us is bad too. But yeah,
Where are we?
I'm sorry I
That's
missed
the
that
one.
in my review of this thing.
So what you're
Apologize.
saying is it's possible they don't have the power to make that call currently unless it's in state law because it's not in the previous agreement?
Not in supporting documents.
Well,
Okay.
There's nothing included in the
Just-
supporting documents either to the agenda.
Well then,
I can ask KP.
Yeah.
Whoa,
yeah.
That's step one. Because we have to get this figured out quickly.
yeah, because we're
it's
gonna have
very
to make a
late.
recommendation.
Right, per
I
usual.
mean, the problem we have on the school budget is it's a plebiscite, it's up or down, that's it. We don't have any ability to,
You do, but
we do.
Well,
Have no time.
again, there's in our circumstance, our requirement for an override or other budget adjustments, the difference between the methodologies is negligible. It's not influencing us too much one way or the
Right.
other. But it's more the principle. Do you want to establish that precedent that this is what we're doing now?
And in the principle of it, I feel like we have a pretty decent relationship among the district of the 4 towns. And, you know, I don't necessarily want that to be open to a personality going one way or the other. And I would like something in place that continues to help us move along
That's
in a steady, even sort of like reasonable, as you said, it's either this year or that year, like we know it's gonna shift around, but I don't want, you know, I want an agreement that like,
We have the usual hurdles.
yeah, and like
But they're
continues
throwing a
the,
high
like,
jump in the middle.
harmoniousness so that it doesn't open up for there to be a tit for tat.
we've always had respectful communication.
Yeah.
Right, and I wanna like keep that,
Sorry, Jerry.
keep that
No,
going.
no, you're good. I want to,
Go, Jer.
Jackie, if we go boom, right back to the committee, their knee-jerk reaction is going to be very defensive. But where are the other town managers? Do we know where they stand on this? And do they agree? Look, the way
Yes.
Rich said it, Brewster would make out a little bit. I mean, but are they all in agreement that it shouldn't have happened this
Well,
way? or
we have
what?
a town administrator in Wellfleet who's temporary and who's been there literally 3 weeks.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm not sure what his opinion is. Orleans, I haven't opined. I know Peter and I have both expressed
Mm.
shock and dismay.
Okay. That's, well, it may be. We want to send back that we disagree, but it may be worthwhile for you to kind of discuss with the other town managers or administrators to see it, because if we can have, if they show a united front, it's a very different
Right.
approach to the school committee than just Eastham coming in and say, this doesn't make it.
And
we
who's our
disagree with
Moira?
this."
And Is it Amy Handel still, or who's our other?
Why wouldn't you want the statute?
Moira.
Where
Yeah, Moira's one of them. but who's our other?
over 60% of the budget is schools. So they could,
Come up to the mic, Peter.
I just don't, I think.
Has Peter
maybe
seen the
the
school
best-
budget yet?
The best ultimate setup might be the statutory, where one town can't vote down the whole school budget. Brewster's already up over 60% of their budget is schools. And I think that the danger might be that Brewster one year might say that's it, we've had it, we're paying too much for these schools, we're out, and the budget for the whole region goes down.
I think that's a valid point, Peter, but that's a town issue to figure out.
But
You
you
know,
wouldn't
I
want to,
think the school committee is charged with approving and adopting a budget. They're not charged with determining the assessment method.
but don't you think, to Suzanne's point about predictability year after year, that you would want to pick one method or the other and stay with it?
Right.
So you're not having this discussion every year.
So Peter, that is a great point, but why did they do it in darkness without discussing it with anyone? And in a year where we have just opened up the agreement and we've always done it one way. Wouldn't it be, as Mary said, wouldn't it be better to keep doing the way we're doing it? And then if we're going to change it formally in the agreement? Like, why do a weird year where it's odd? It's just odd. And to me, it does not send a good message to the towns because it's disrespectful
I guess, and
to do it this way.
I think.
if the statutory method's better, then the towns can all get together and say, okay, that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
The towns can decide.
Yeah.
My take is that they honestly, give them the benefit of the doubt, they were sort of surprised that they were supposed to be voting on this every year, and they never had. And also, they were surprised to learn that one town could vote down in the system that we had been using. So they,
But
They went
they
with
never
it.
have, and they never have because we've all gotten together and talked about it and
Right.
had a strategy every year. So
well,
they've broken something that was working, I think, that was working fairly well. And maybe they'll cause two towns to vote against their budget now.
everybody, there, the understanding in the past has always been that if one town voted it down, they would still have to pay. I mean, that's what the finance committee was told. That wasn't true.
Hmm.
We were operating under the alternative method. If one town voted it down, the whole thing, it would have gone down for everybody.
Oh,
So
wow.
I don't
So
know. It was
only
kind of a
Statutory.
part of it's just, it's been a mess.
I think the other, and this is why it requires discussion, Peter, is because I hear what you're saying, and the current agreement does give rise to potential for some swings. But we can craft an agreement that minimizes swings, minimum participation, a 3-year rolling average, and minimize those increases or decreases in any one year. If you go all in on the statutory method, that is prone to swings as well, based on minimum state aid, your participation of your children, your foundation budget for your children, whether you have special needs children, whether or not your children are low income versus higher income in other towns. All those factors can change, and state law can change from any number of lobbying factions that have their own special interest in this. So saying that maybe that's a better way, I don't think that's a given.
No, may not be. No, do you think it'll look, since going to the statutory method, this year is going to impact Eastham by adding $51,000 to the, if we put up a big fight against it, is it going to look like we're doing it to save $51,000? And then create some friction with the other towns? I don't know.
Is that the difference between the two methods, or do we even, that is?
Yeah,
That's the difference.
51,000.
What if we voted the extra 51,000, but said we want the other method? So we're putting up our money.
There you go.
We're just on principle of the method.
Rather than the 1.3.
Why would we? Why would we want the other? Anyway.
All right, yeah, well, we'll
That-
get council's opinion.
Because
on
it
what-
matters to us.
That
It
has-
matters to us, Peter. It may not matter to you, but I'm telling you that it matters to us.
What matters to you?
The
Which
me-
method?
Which method?
The method and the openness
Right.
and who gets to decide and how we decide these huge issues. We should be deciding these huge issues together, period.
I get that point.
That is my problem, not the 51,000.
It's definitely not about the 51,000.
Not in this year where that's a drop in the bucket.
So that's kind of urgent, that we
Yeah.
gotta figure
Right.
out what method we're using for this year.
Yeah.
The re- going forward, the future, what to do in the future, we have time and
Right.
maybe we can get a working group from the 4 towns together and work with the school committee and
For the,
craft the a new regional agreement in the next year.
well, thank you. Thank you both for coming.
Easier to vote no.
All right, we're gonna move on to the draft warrant.
Oh, yes.
No,
I like that.
Wait,
No.
hold up, back up, guys. It says 2023. 2, it says Monday, May 6th.
Oh, yeah, no,
And
no,
I'm like,
Yeah.
those are
Everybody
the
relax.
Draft,
I know,
yes.
but is it
very draft.
Wednesday,
No,
the 6th or Saturday, the 6th?
yeah. It's gonna be maybe Saturday, the 11th. That's,
That's what we're shooting for.
Oh,
Can it
no,
not be Saturday, the 11th?
not Saturday. Well,
Oh, God.
I have to work Brewster Town meeting.
Is Brewster Town meeting Saturday, the 11th?
Is Saturday, the 11th, May 11th at 1 PM.
well, if we have at 10.
Oh, yeah, we'll be done
Be
by then.
done.
Trying to end my life early.
No, we can change it.
What
It's
happened
up to the selectmen by
new
charter.
bill?
I know. Well,
That's here.
that's our next agenda item.
All right.
Okay,
So
we'll
let's
start
talk
with
about the
location
warrant
and
for
then
now, but then we'll talk about location. at our
Oh,
next agenda
okay, the
item.
Okay.
dates, sorry.
That's okay.
I just went
That's okay.
straight to the panic of,
okay.
what do you
Yeah.
mean, what day?
And yeah, I had the same reaction, like I was circling things and then I realized, oh, wait, this
If
is
it's in
draft.
red, it's not real.
Oh,
Well, and even some of that is,
okay.
I know.
It's in red, it's
But-
not real.
She just didn't go far enough with the red.
Yeah, there's one.
I mean, it's just our first,
There's one thing
glance,
in there
really.
that had your, something we signed and you were.
I was the clerk and you were the.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you gotta fix that.
yeah. she'll-
Honestly, I
that'll all get
promise we're
fixed.
gonna fix it.
That's. But generally budget and. The big things, I guess really is what we're generally looking at. You don't even look at the summaries because some of those are last year's.
Is two C,
To see,
The police.
that's the, okay. Is that the new positions?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
and that's got a provision in there that says
Okay.
it's gotta be passed by.
the ballot. Override.
Yep.
Override, yeah.
Yep.
650,000.
Oh, that's
Does that,
50,000.
does that include
What is-
OPEB and all of that?
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's a full.
And training and uniforms and a
Yeah,
new
yeah, no,
car.
no,
and
yes,
all
I
that.
understand, but it's got a full 38% or whatever add on.
Anything specific, anyone? I did talk to Jackie a little bit about basically the land swaps with the seashore.
Mhm.
And we'll be getting assessment or appraisals.
Yeah, there's so many steps to that process, and one of them is that all the parcels that are being traded have to be appraised, and they have to have the same value. So,
Is that gonna be ready for?
we have to put the ones that we want to trade on this year's, yes, because it's been so long, and we are using Nauset Lake Beach Road, so that is definitely, there are 2 parcels that we definitely want to have.
Mhm.
And that's the only parcel that the seashore, we could find that has enough territory that the seashore wants. I was going to see if we could add the shoebox sized piece of land that is behind the police station that is directly adjacent to the Field of Dreams. So there's literally a shoebox that should connect to the Field of Dreams, right? That belongs to the National Seashore, and then beyond that, it's private property, and on the other side is the town. So that's a potential. I don't know how much land that is, but I don't think
And what
it's.
about that one across from the high school? That we had, remember the parking area we kind of talked about?
Mhm.
That was ours, yeah.
It's on cable. But I mean,
I thought we already owned that. We own the one that's directly
Yeah,
across.
I thought we owned it. Yeah, we were gonna put a potential parking that was,
that's right. I'm thinking, yeah, I was thinking backwards because we would want something else from them is what we would want. Because that parcel we're giving up is pretty big.
Jackie, is there a, I know there's two because I got a approximate in value, right?
Mhm.
Do we feel like they are approximate in value or the only thing
So
I've
the
contemplated in
value,
the past
I
is-
haven't, we sent this to John Giorgio. Shayna put in 0 value because the park is very clear that they will not give money. Right? So I don't want to put the value in there because we have to come up with an assessment that's of equal value. So it can't, if it's not cash, then it's going to be more land. So if, as Amy's point is, if our 3-acre parcel is worth more than the Salt Pond parcel combined with the Nauset Lake Beach Road parcel, then we will have to find another
Well,
piece of
that's
land.
kind of my point. Could we add parcels to this authorization and say these parcels or any assortment of these parcels to, so that we have the flexibility and don't have to
Oh,
come
that's a
back?
great idea.
Yes, I think that is a great idea.
So that's one back here that
Mhm.
you mentioned and maybe poke around. We had identified several.
Mhm.
Um,
Why are we doing? that?
was near Hemingway.
Why are we doing this?
Mhm.
We built a road on National Park property. It's about 7 years old now. So they are losing patience and they would like us to
Do the land swap.
do the land swap.
We haven't done. We have to give them.
It's not our fault. They haven't
Lost
really
the light-
wanted to be.
lost the light road
So that new road, that's 7 years old already?
behind Three Sisters.
Oh, wow. Okay, so,
Well, since we started.
so,
2016, yeah.
okay, so not,
So that's the urgency. And also the Shellfish Shack at Saw Pond is on their land. We own the shack, but it's on their land. So that's the other parcel that we're.
okay, so
It's
the road
adjacent
is
to the town
currently-
landing. It'll be really a
Well,
good
that's what I'm
spot for
wondering
us.
by
Okay.
Hemingway. They
Oh,
own immediately south of
oh,
Hemingway
look at
Land.
that then.
And I think it's just a little triangle.
The problem with those is trying to clear title for some of those triangles or
Mhm.
parcels takes literally years. So it's better to find something that we've already either that has a chain of title or something. And most of our woodlots don't, and we run into that.
But didn't, when
problem.
the seashore took those lots, didn't they go through all that?
I don't know, because sometimes they take them the way we take them, where
No.
people just,
Wow.
but I'll look at it.
Yeah, I don't know how big it is.
Disposition piece of combine it so that the article, action for something, can get rid of something, but whatever the mix of it is, has to be assessed at approximate value.
Fine.
and this is so that we'll ultimately own the land that the road is on.
Yes,
A little swapperino, okay.
Mhm.
that's what's moving it
Okay.
forward.
I had a separate article question. For 5D on the short-term rentals. And I think this is a future agenda item, so maybe it doesn't need to be said, but if you go down to page, oh, there's no page number. If you go down, so the article is introduced here, go to the 4th page of the article. It says protection for existing short-term rentals is the header.
Okay.
At the last part, it says if a property is bequeathed to a person or other beneficiary through a will, the new owner may continue to engage in short-term rental activities in accordance with this section. I thought the board was going to discuss the idea of legacy on this and potentially limit it to 5-year or to the transfer of the property.
Maybe they're saving it for the public hearing. I don't know. I'll ask Paul.
Yeah. Cause that was something that we, at the
You're right,
last meeting,
yeah.
we weren't.
Good catch, Jamie.
Mhm.
That's in 5D.
D protection for existing.
Short-term rentals.
Yeah, I think it really should end with the period if after is not renewed.
Right. Exactly. And then the summary would have to be updated as well.
And again, it would not affect a whole lot of people.
Cottage.
in-
Oh, yeah, the
It
number of
wouldn't-
people, yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't
no.
affect a whole lot of number, it wouldn't affect a lot of number of people around town, and presumably this would, you
No,
know,
it's actually not in the summary.
Oh, maybe I meant to,
In the summary, it just says until the unit is transferred or conveyed and the certificate of registration is not renewed, period.
hold on, where am I?
Oh, wait, no, yeah,
the
property
bottom.
bequeath, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right, sorry. This has more in it. Had a little bit more, so I didn't think it was
in the summary.
3 or more short-term rentals.
Mhm.
Right, and Jackie and I had talked a little bit about, there were questions from, I think, Climate Action about presenting the stretch energy code.
Yeah, I talked to them
Oh, you did?
and said very, very, very short, brief. And be available to answer some questions in case they come around. And I hope so. And I
And
think because I told them that you have the authority to
No, the
push them
moderator,
along. This at the public
Oh.
hearing is the moderator?
sorry, I'm talking about town meeting.
Oh, town
them.
meeting. I didn't talk to them about
Ah.
town meeting. We can. Let's wait till after the
Okay.
25th to see how it goes
Gotcha,
before we
gotcha.
decide.
Because I was gonna talk about the pesticide one too, but that doesn't need a public hearing.
No.
But same thing, really, the moderator should talk to her about
Yeah.
how much time she gets, and,
Mhm.
but I think we should let her, Laura, do it,
Yes, yes. They did
kind of her baby.
all the work on that, yeah. I have a question for Jackie and Rich, on the 2A on the budget. There's all we have is a line for Nauset Regional Schools.
Hmm.
So now if we want, that's line 30. So if we have an issue with that coming up at the town meeting, it's up or down on line 30. You can't really modify that, so.
You could modify it with the motion. So I would anticipate, so not reflected in this article is a lot of discussion points that we gotta have probably on the budget hearing. Or, in advance or two, however you want to do it, but as presented, the budget, that level of budget, we can't fund with our property tax levy. So there will be, unless you want me to
Override.
hold back, Jackie, but tell me, or wink at me or whatever, but basically at the moment, this motion would be for that level budget would be a $1.2 million override entirely for the school budgets. Our budget comes within our levy limit. The 1.2 represents the excess of the amount we provided, 3%, and the amounts in excess of that 3%. So for our finance committee, which I'll be briefing on Wednesday in advance of the budget hearing, how do we approach a $1.2 million override? In most circumstances, you have contingent budgets. What if that override doesn't pass? Because based on our earlier discussion, we're beholden to fund the school budget request assessments, which means we'd have to cut our own budget. $1.2 million would be substantial cut in our services. And so our alternative at the moment is a small amount of reduction that we've kind of laid out, which would not be entirely impactful to our operation we could handle. And replacing the property tax revenue that would not get raised with unused short-term rental receipts. We've not used short-term rental receipts for the operating budget intentionally. But that would allow us to go appropriate a certain level of budget without it being contingent upon passing an override.
But it would mean if we accept wastewater, that.
But and it's very impactful, you know, the small amount of reductions that we've got to make in our this year's budget to accommodate that, we can handle that. But it would be very impactful to how we're funding wastewater. And for example, in not funding the override is actually negligible with the change, because all the debt for wastewater that is now being funded by short-term rentals would no longer be funded by short-term rentals, because the exempt debt would have to get added to the levy. And that would free up the short-term rental for the operating budget, which, as you all know,
So you're
is a
still gonna be
one-time,
paying-
Shall
it's a
get,
one-time fix.
Yeah, it's a one-time, it just pushes it.
but it's a
around here.
forever decision. If you make that decision, town meeting makes that decision, it's forever. We can never get it back without doing another override to get that million and
Short-term
a half
rental.
back.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm gonna propose a third option too.
That would be nice.
But I haven't thought about, I mean, I haven't finished it yet, but
Oh.
Not tonight,
random
not
assistance.
tonight.
that's why we weren't gonna talk about it tonight,
Okay.
because we're not done, but
Yeah,
you know.
that's fine.
All right.
Can I ask a question? Does the 1.2, Rich, include any monies in that? Is that just education, or does it include any monies with regarding the police request?
No.
Just education.
Everything
Separate.
in 2A excludes the police request. The police is a totally separate article at 2C.
And it stays.
The 650.
I might lower it.
It'll be 1.85 total,
No, it's not.
plus more. Okay, never mind.
1.8.
Be quiet.
Uh-huh.
We're fine.
All right.
We'll
It's
see
not
the-
final yet.
We'll see the numbers when we finally see them, when you're ready.
All right, everyone have a good look at the
Yeah.
warrant.
I had
All
a
right, let's talk about town meeting
It's
location.
ugly.
good look.
Well, yes, location.
Location. So we had, talked about, we had the warrant article last year to be able to have town meeting in another town. But then, Jackie thought about it and we can.
I mean, I think it's really, I know that for you guys, it's a decision, but for us, it's operationalizing that decision for 1 year in a new location that we don't know is going to be effective on a year that we may have 2 overrides, like, we can't fit, people in the same room. So then we might have to have 2 rooms so I started to think about it, and Adam Bohannon he hates the idea of we'll have to hire the Orleans Police Department to cover our town meeting. I mean, just the logistics of it just start to add up. And we've gotten really, as Adam said, we've gotten really good at the field. We can do it for 1 more year. It's only 1 more year. And yes, it might be cold, it might be rainy, we might have to postpone, and we would have to have a rain date or whatever, but so that's where we kind of went full circle back to.
I love the field. It finally gives me the opportunity to wear a big hat, which I've forgotten the last. I endorse the field.
I like how he pulled the CERT team in, give us a job, our first.
But if
First
the
year.
11th is problematic, I mean, we did it on the 6th last year, so we could pull it back to the 4th. It's just colder, that's the chances of May
May the
4th.
Be with you.
Oh, fun.
Like it.
Star Wars
I
theme.
have Star Wars pants.
But we can see if we can get the tents and the electronic voting and everything on the 4th.
All right. I would appreciate that.
Or we can move it out to the 18th,
Wednesday town election.
the 21st.
Okay, you couldn't do it the.
Both of them work
Yeah, I would super.
We could do a rain date.
on the 18th.
Rain date. the
Well, let me,
18th.
if you don't mind, can I just check with electronic voting and the tent and chair people and,
Run those
because
2
there
dates
are,
by them.
there are weddings on May 11th. I just found that out today.
Shocking. There's weddings on
They're
May
anxious.
11th.
They want to give away our tents.
Does Brewster have electronic voting?
No.
No,
Bruce is
no,
not-
there's counters. There's little tags and they raise them.
And they've had a couple of really big ones lately
Oh,
too,
yeah.
so.
This one is gonna also be quite large.
Oh.
and probably quite long. And it starts at 1 and I need to be
What's
there.
the big deal on Brewster this year?
The Sea Camps plan.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then also citizens petition on short-term rentals probably. Yeah, but so if we could not do it on the same day, that'd be really great.
Okay.
I would super appreciate
All
it.
right, let me see which is the best and then we'll vote finally on the 20th or the 25th.
Or the 18th.
I mean, you could have 2 themes. You have. Yeah.
Well, as
I'll always
Rich
find a
said, we
theme.
could always have the 18th be the rain date
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
if they're available.
I love a Star Wars theme though.
We're gonna need the
Right up
4th
your
with
alley.
us this year.
Right up your alley, Jim. Right up there.
I'm just asking, what's the final decision, May 4th is what you're?
No, the
Well,
final decision is that I have to find out tomorrow, I have to find out whether we can get the electronic voting people and the tent and table people for either the 4th or the 18th.
So we'll decide on the
Happy night.
25th.
Yeah.
That will be our first order of business.
Yeah, before the public hearing.
Yeah, we're starting at 4:30.
Well, because the
Well, yeah,
dog
we are
thing,
for
yeah,
30, but that's got the.
dog,
dog
yeah.
things.
All right. All right,
think
new
we should-
upcoming agenda. I think we can gloss over that for right now. We have a
Uh-huh.
lot enough on our plate.
What about No Mo May?
No
Oh,
mo.
No mo-
sorry, yep, I had the old agenda here. No mo.
Oh,
May.
no mo May.
So the ask from the gentleman that sent the letter was at least wait till the mid-May to mow for town.
I think that's a great
Mowing.
idea. I have a neighbor that they put little signs out too that like let people know why.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Mhm.
This would just be, this is what we say. It's not any enforcement.
Well, but we
No.
do
Oh,
town
it's
properties
town
too.
properties.
Town properties.
Oh, it's town property.
Yeah. Sorry, Jackie.
Jackie's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
What's
No,
that?
I'm just thinking, do we have anything in May that we don't want to
Like,
have
oh, that's
kids
so
get
nice.
ticks
And then-
and
When
stuff?
does the Little League?
Yeah,
stuff start?
we have to mow the fields.
Oh, the bees.
Field of Dreams.
Well, I'm sorry, but we can't not use the field for a whole month.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Maybe we
Ways
could
to
try
play
to
in
do
weeds.
other properties in town.
Is it an official policy or just like
No.
in the spirit of
It's
it?
in the spirit,
Yeah,
but
okay.
To encourage other
Can mow
people,
on
you kind of
30th.
should set an
I
example.
promise I will not mow my lawn.
yeah, we'll mow
It's
April
low back.
30th.
I don't have, I just pull weeds. So
Yeah.
let 'em grow a little long.
April 30th and May 15th.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing is Christine with the.
That'll
fields,
be, yeah.
Getting
and,
it ready for the spring.
Really, I
programs.
can't stress Christine out more.
Hi, we're not,
no,
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 If
no,
you're
no.
watching.
We're,
You're fine, Christine, don't worry. Yeah, that might be nice. And then put a little sign out.
Because I don't think we have any craft fairs or anything in
June.
May. I think those are. in
It might be nice to, yeah, do something with the sign up so people understand and that way it kind of educates people a little bit. We could even include it in a blast. I
could we
They give
put
them
a
around
banner up?
mow in there.
don't know if we could get a banner in time.
I would talk to John about the
Just,
grounds.
you
and
know,
mowing.
Yeah.
Where
Okay.
we put the-
Sorry.
I know, you got your
No,
notepads full.
I know.
I'll look to see if I
Already
can find
signed
the
little
little
stars
promo
away.
signs.
Got little stars everywhere.
Wonder if
Cause you know, the, across from where they put the
yard
the
signs are
windmill,
free.
where it's usually like summer concert,
All right, my signpost.
your signpost,
Maybe some
yeah, I
sign
didn't know
used
if
yet.
that could, I don't know if
Yeah,
No Mo
signpost.
May banner would be
I
appropriate.
just built it.
Go
I just
that
built
far.
it.
Invertebrate
paid for it.
Conservation Society has a free printable sign.
Nice.
Okay.
All right,
Print it
town
out.
manager's report.
I don't have a written one, I'm sorry, but I do have a couple of items and they're on my, here. Just some things that we're gonna need to discuss in the next few meetings. One is the state has passed the good landlord tax exemption, which is a property tax exemption for people who rent year round. We still have time to add that to the warrant if you want to. However, it allows the board to set a policy to give people a tax break if they rent to someone year round who is 200% of AMI or less.
Oh,
So it
good.
gives a higher threshold and we'd need to just accept it at town meeting, accept the statute at town meeting, and then we'd have to develop policies for it.
Yes.
We also need to update our policy on the Timothy Smith loans.
Oh,
I got a memo from the treasurer's office and I think there's just some things that policy is a little old and needs to be,
It was when I was first on the
Updated,
board, I think.
right?
we did, so
Yes.
Probably 08.
yeah, something like that. And then I have been discussing, as you can imagine, I've been discussing the short-term rental tax registration increase with quite a few taxpayers. And a couple of them have brought, I think, fairly legitimate issues. One of which is I'm trying to get, I've gotten a legal opinion from Copeland and Page that we can't do one of them because it's not legal under federal law, not state law, but federal law. It's the first time I've ever
Hmm.
tried to break federal law. But the other one is, we'll just bring it back to you, but it's basically people who are saying to me, why are you charging the same fee, whether we have a studio with no kitchen that we rent like a little motel room versus for $140 a night versus someone who has an $11,000 a week.
So we should charge more for the 11,000.
Shouldn't we have some tiers is what they're saying. So
Developing some tiers?
I think we could look at that one.
Sure.
Or they
But
could always
please-
switch to year round.
Please make it as simple as possible.
I know.
Yes.
Maybe big buckets to it by square footage,
Well,
something.
no, I was thinking like if you're a studio or one bedroom, you have one rate. If you're 2 bedroom and above, you have another rate.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah,
do
see,
350
even
and
more
450.
simple.
Yeah.
Even more simple.
That's what, I mean, I have my bottom already. I think the bottom is there, so,
Yeah.
but anyway.
Well, I suggested we have, if like a year-round person rents out their house for 2 months in the summer, to be able to keep it, shouldn't they
Right.
pay the lower rate? But
But we
that's one
can't do
thing
that
you can't-
legally.
That's illegal under federal law.
Right, and I did hear that from a few people too, and it was a valid concern, and it was something I wish we could
I know.
execute better.
Maybe we could use the community fund to subsidize their.
We could.
If they wanted to apply
Application.
as a year-round.
Well, I don't know if we could use the community fund, but I'm sure you could vote something.
Yeah, maybe we could, as
Could
the
we-
town could
Can't use
subsidize.
taxpayer
Subsidize.
The
money
same
to do
idea of
that.
subsidizing, yeah.
We could work a fee waiver into it, but it can't be just based on that.
You want me to update the community fund?
Again?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So we've had some issues with the community fund.
A
Oh.
lot of issues.
What?
It's
Community
got held
fund.
up with Senate Council. We raised some legitimate issues, which I thought back in the day when we first started this that we would have, but nobody mentioned them, so I thought we were home free. But it has to do with the anti-aid amendment of the Constitution. You can't provide private benefit, blah, blah, blah. So they needed it fine tuned. And so they offered the opportunity for us to rewrite it.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's existing legislation in Harwich that allows us to, it's very specific to providing
relief.
benefit to taxpayers.
Okay,
It's through the assessment processor. So I wrote it pretty much the same as that, but saying it's by a decision of the select board. And then the other addition, which isn't a change, it's just keeping our original intent of we wanted this to be a separate fund so that we can appropriate money into it as opposed to being part of our overlay and our assessing process. So the big discuss point now, I think as it's rewritten, it will be good. It's just a question of, do we need to revote it because it's changed verbiage enough that it changed the overall intent and
Probably
have
not
to
a
go
bad
through the
idea.
process again.
You guys
We're
are-
hoping to hear back that Senate Council says it's still within the original intent of what was authorized. And we need an approval, but just the select board, not the,
It might be good to bring it back to the board for a vote.
but probably will
Well,
come back to the
yeah.
select
Oh,
board
it
At a
has to.
minimum,
Has to- Okay,
at a
for
minimum.
the changed.
okay.
It just hopefully it doesn't have to go all the way back.
Oh,
It
to
doesn't
them.
come
Oh, I
in.
see, I
No,
see,
to
I
the
see.
town meeting.
Town
Oh,
meeting.
oh.
Because if it's just a select
It's
board acceptance,
substantial change, they might say it has to go back.
So,
and then it has to restart the whole process where if the select board can just approve the changes as made, it can continue down the legislation.
Alright. Good luck.
Saga of the community fund. It's almost like the charter.
Yeah, may even be
Wow.
worse.
Yeah. All right. Minutes. I had one little correction in the minutes. The about moving the meeting, or not meeting, the voting times. She put in that asked to reduce voting hours due to turnout with early voting, has nothing to do with early voting, has to do with mail-in ballots, because we don't have early voting for town election. It's just usually the mail-in ballots, not, it's, she wrote turn with early voting. It's
Okay.
really mail-in
Mail-in,
ballots.
mail-in ballots.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with that change.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? 4-0.
No other.
And with that, any other business?
Oh,
I move we adjourn.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I.
Bye.